Hey, all, Asdul here. Just going to watch this interview of the devs of Classic WoW Season of Discovery. There's some good information here. I just wanted to bring that to you and give my input by reacting to this interview. Anyways, here we go.
Okay, well, Classic Plus, or I guess Seasons of Discovery. Yeah, sure. I think the biggest question change, I've done the demo so many times now, but that is...
Speed running it?
Yeah, we sped around it, we did, yeah. You know we did. Yeah. Where'd the rune idea come from? The rune system? I guess let's start that. Where'd that come from? What was the idea of that?
I feel like I'm hogging the mic here. Do you want to try to take a stab at this?
I think it was more of a group effort.
Really.
So the runes to me kind of sound like they remind me of the Malignant Hearts from Season 1 of Diablo 4, like an item similar to a gem or a glyph that you put into an item that gives you new abilities. It's also kind of similar, reminds me of the affixes from Diablo 4, so they're calling it runes, but it's some sort of enchant or something you do to a piece of armor that gives you a new skill. So to me, it kind of reminds me of the affixes or the Malignant Hearts.
Yeah. I was about to start throwing out names, and I was like, I shouldn't do that. But I really do think, like, in general, we got together as a team. There was lots of brainstorming. There was lots of like, what should this system look like? How do we want players to interact with these abilities, these class changing abilities, right? Do we want them to be like hot swappable, like you can just change them at any time, learn them like a book of spells, you know what I mean? Like, or do we want them to be like on use, it's used up or something like that? And we went basically the spell.
I'm glad they didn't go on use.
Route, right? So you can at any time swap your abilities out, come up with some interesting builds. We decided to add quite a few runes, like 12 runes per class.
It started out with way more too before we kind of trimmed down.
Yeah.
Is it 12 per class period, or is it going to be more?
Just in the 1 to 25.
Okay, so like what I saw in my Warlock, for example, those are my runes.
Yeah.
For now.
And the example of like my Metamorphosis rune was in my glove slot. Is that always going to be the glove slot, or can you put the rune in your pants slot?
That will go.
It'll be the glove slot. Okay.
I mean, unless some like rebalance happens at some point, which we would try.
Again, that's kind of similar to affixes. They can only go into certain items.
To kind of build on that, like a little bit of deep lore for sort of the season is we have been talking about sort of the general idea of this season since literally WoW Classic Beta. The 2019.
That's crazy.
Like,
wow.
I remember being in a room with folks, and we had we're watching on. It was before the pandemic, and we're together in the classic pit, the bullpen or whatever. And we had it on TV. We're watching I think it was a dueling thing that S-Fan was doing and his guild or whatever. And it was so fun to watch them just pull all the stops out and just wacky combinations of items and talents at level 30 or whatever. And it was just so fun to watch, and we really loved that. And so when we kind of started working backwards from that idea.
So I think that is also going to be interesting because with the level cap being 25, and like he mentioned, beta testing, which I guess was 30, there's going to be a lot of fun things to discover and really play to their full potential with being in level 25, not just having to go right to 60. So I like that.
Yeah. Well, it was after Season of Mastery came out, we're like, what would we want to do next? We knew we wanted to do something a lot deeper than Season of Mastery. And when we started kind of working backwards from that idea, it was like, well, it would be really cool to have these level breaks, but what are you going to do during that? And one of the things is like, what if there was kind of almost Easter egg hunts kind of thing where, and at the time the idea was actually
interesting.
Hey, why don't we just make these new class abilities and stuff item set bonuses or something? And it's like, well, that's cool, but it's like, what if they don't drop? What if there's a lot of things with that
So that's interesting. What if they don't drop? Kind of leads me to believe that it's something that they want people to be able to get. If it's only on an item or you need to have a full set, there's a chance, or only those most dedicated players will be able to get them. But it sounds like they want everybody to basically be able to get these items. So my take on that is that it's not going to be super hard when you're doing these discoveries to get those things, to unlock the new kind of twist to the classes that they're putting in. So I like hearing that.
Kind of gatekeep some of the coolest stuff that you'd want to do behind you got to get lucky, or you got to spend a bunch of gold or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's well, why don't we just have the runes be something that's discoverable as those discoveries? And so that's kind of the genesis of it, but it's almost something we've been talking about for so many years now. It's sort of evolved that, you know, once we actually started working on it, we had a pretty good idea of kind of think what we wanted to do, and we just kind of barreled forward.
Yeah.
And the thing I said in the panel, being excited for players to venture forth and discover them on their own, like, I mean that because some of them are actually quite funny.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Are they gonna be harder to find, or is, like, can you give an example of what it's like finding, like, is it like you went to a Goldshire Inn and there's like a box and it's there or something?
Some of them are that simple. Good,
Yeah.
right.
That's good to know.
Well, someone else asked us, like, are these all just like quests or something, or newly added? And I was like, maybe some of them are newly added quests that weren't there before in the game. However, most of them are things like, I've discovered this object in the world, let me interact with it. Oh, it tells me some kind of story, and it gives me hints of where to go.
I wonder if that's at all like Hero's Blood. Like you find Hero's Blood and all of a sudden, if you weren't ready for it, shit goes south. So maybe like an item you discover in the world, it's going to be pretty interesting. And I think based on what they're saying, like if you're going out in the world wandering around, you're really going to be keeping your eyes open for these new secrets and discoveries that could be just like, you know, a standard looking, I don't know what, but it'll really add a new element of not just grinding through the levels, but keeping your eyes peeled for those secrets. So I really like the sound of that.
Go maybe look for the next clue, right?
Oh,
so
that's dope.
So it's actually quite almost, because we went into it knowing this was all going to be data mined eventually, right? And players were going to solve these and probably make an add-on for it or something. But we also realized that, like, even if data mining occurred, like if players don't go and venture out and like actually solve the riddles, they're probably not going to piece it together just by looking at the game files.
I know it's probably not like that, but the quest Cortello's Riddle, that is an excellent quest where you just go around the world finding and looking for things. So kind of sounds maybe that might be similar to one of them, which is pretty cool.
Is it like random, like using a metaglyph? Is that metaglyph found or meta rune found everywhere in the world that one way, or is it? Yeah, of course. You know
I do like that it's not random.
That's actually good. I'll go ahead and say that rune in particular is one that there's lots of categories of how they're discoverable, and that particular one is one that is part of kind of a chain. It's like, because that's really iconic.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a very
I
powerful,
can't even explain to you
iconic-
how I felt when I sat down.
Right.
And then logged in and
but
saw that icon.
That discovery isn't going to be going and looting a chest. There's a lot to that. It might span multiple zones. There's a lot to it. That's
good.
And it's going to be a minute.
So the good runes, you make them work for it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
It'd
good.
be good
That's
as
good.
subjective, right? But like the ones that are like impressive, like visually impressive or really iconic.
I
those
really
are
am
the
excited
ones that
about
you might
this.
look for. But it's different. Some are chests. Some are you find an NPC, you speak to them, and they may have a special interaction.
I also want to say I just really like the interview style of these two. It seems very kind of laid back, candid, like they're just deciding what they're going to let you know and tell you what they can. It's not like a pre-scripted like PR thing where they don't want to let too much out or they don't really have anything at all to say. It just seems kind of refreshing. Also, if you like my take and the extra things that I read into this, I'm Asdual, so please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks.
Do a thing, like some of them are traditional quests. It really is very varied, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them in the 1 through 25 because there's so many different starting zones that we had to duplicate the runes, but we didn't necessarily duplicate the discovery method. So some zones have their own flavorful discovery methods that are flavorful to that zone and classes in that zone.
So you can't earn the same rune by doing different things.
You can.
Is
There's
it
some
like
of them,
you get the rune in your bag, you use it, and now it's a rune?
Yes.
Yep, you've learned it. Yeah.
Can you? I don't know why it'd matter. They're not. You can't trade them or nothing, right? So I'm only gonna find a warlock one. So I can't go find a mage one, right? Okay.
That almost sounds a little bit like in Diablo 4, the codex you have, where once you've learned it, you can then put it on things. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's kind of what this sounds like runes will be. So maybe it's not exactly an item once you've used it. I don't know.
And some of the discoveries do have a cross class element. Like, you know, I don't think it's too spoilery to say, but like there's maybe one rune where you find a dead character and you have to do like a ritual to like send their soul to the shadows.
Sounds
right?
like
you need 2 healers for that, right? But like either healer could get their own class rune.
Oh, that's well, that's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be fun, just like little Easter eggs running around trying to get them.
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff like that.
And it gives you like excuses to interact with other people too.
Yeah, totally. And you're gonna see a lot of people shouting. It's like, hey, I found this thing. I don't know what to do. Does anybody know? And it's like, oh, I know. It's like, oh, I need a buddy for that. Can you come and help me with it? Like that's the intent. Anyway, that's what we hope.
That's the exciting part is,
which is nice too. And probably the interviewer is just going to say this, but it'll bring back community and working together, which is good at times and something that'll be great.
people were saying like if it's capped at 25, that's going to take. Is it like you didn't change? Are you changing the experience gain from 1 to 20? It's just whatever it is right now.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So that's like super fast. And I'm like, yeah, but now you can go run around everywhere and find all your runes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the way we kind of built it too is like we talked in the panel about there's like a tutorial rune, right? Honestly, if you find nothing but that tutorial rune until you hit 25, you're still going to be kind of pumping. Like the first paladin rune I showed was Crusader.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that alone, huge change to the paladin level.
Yeah.
If you found nothing else until you hit 25, you'd be jamming.
Yeah.
And most other classes are like that.
The crowd cheered so loud when I said Crusader Strike. I knew they'd cheer, but I didn't expect that.
And then the first was the taunt right into it. It was like the paladins were going crazy.
Yeah, I was so startled. Yeah.
Exactly.
You find them pretty easy level, and I'll just level on and find some runes. Maybe I'll find meta right away. Just like drop it there for me. It's on the ground right there. She's like, check the dirt ground pile right there.
I mean, some of them are pretty. They're on the critical path, and some of them are a little off the beaten path.
Okay, about the demo tanking, was your thought like, can you main tank as a demo? Or is it supposed to be on par with like a warrior tank, paladin tank, feral druid, or is it more like off tank you're helping? I've noticed I'm holding threat easily, but like
that's a good question. That's a really good question.
Contend with other tanks.
So it's a tank. It's like this is gonna be a main tank.
I think if you've noticed playing the demo enough too, like you play Horde,
and that's also really interesting. So it's meant to be on par with real tanks. So it's gonna be so different.
If you're trying to shaman tank Baron Aquinas, you might have a bad time. You're not going to have enough mana, right? Because shamans, they get a lot of their mana regen from blocking, right? So you got a heavy physical fight, they're your guy. But for something like Baron Aquinas, you can hit him from range with Searing Pain, and you're good, you're chilling.
Yeah.
Even if you get knocked out, you're still going to hold aggro.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that we thought was cool. Like still letting them keep some unique flavor. But they're still, and that's how classic is, right? A warrior is good for something, a bear is good for something else. A bear can really pump threat with like an MCP, manual crowd pummeler, and like a warrior is just really good at just massive sustained threat over time or massive brick tanking if you really need to balancing strikes and stuff like that, right? So
I like that. Are you guys? A lot of people are questioning it. Are you guys worried or thinking about level 60, the raids at 60 with the runes? With the raids already being like really, really easy without the system, and now that's going to make everybody like more powerful. Is there like a buff to them or something?
Okay, this is another really good question.
Open world in general, even is we're increasing the damage output of mobs such that like at least you should feel threatened. You shouldn't be able to pull an entire zone in classic and be able to just tank that. And so like, and we.
Okay, so that's really good to know. Keeping the challenge there because vanilla or classic WoW is an unforgiving, challenging leveling up experience. And with these, sounds like they're going to be making necessary alterations to kind of keep that challenge in place.
I also thought about we initially talked about should we increase everything's HP as well? And I was like, well, we also don't want stuff to be like you're just sitting there.
Yeah,
you want
exactly.
it to be more
that would
punishing
be awful.
rather than just beating your head.
Yep.
And
I like that.
That's really the thing about vanilla too, is that it's like it's not necessarily that stuff has a ton of health. It's just that things hit you hard, and if you pull too many, you're gonna die. And that's that from hardcore. I know that for So that was really the focus. Is like, well, let's just make things more deadly, so that you're still, if you're blasting, you're blasting. But if you pull 5 things, you're just gonna die. No getting around.
Do you plan to change anything about the 60 raids, like mechanically wise or anything, or it's like MC's MC?
It's honestly kind of too soon to say. I think it would be pretty surprising if we didn't make some adjustments, but it's just too soon to say specifics.
Yeah, that's fair. So what's the if you could even say that it's 25. And
I think make it more difficult, but don't add new stuff. No new mechanics.
60, I take it, right?
So I think.
We're being coy. We're being
Yeah.
coy a little bit about what the next
That's
level band is and what the next raid is and everything.
But you said it'd be a month, right?
No, it will be some number of weeks. We're trying to be unspecific about that. It's
Okay.
Okay, so this is interesting because I thought I heard and I thought it was accurate that it was going to be 3 weeks for that level 25 ban, but they're saying they don't know and they're not going to say how many it is. So sounds like it's going to be around a month, maybe more, probably a bit longer than a month, which is interesting. And I also thought the next level band was already said to be 40. So that wherever I got that number from, that's incorrect because we don't know.
Probably more than a month, less than 3 or 4 months.
That's
It'll
good.
be
Yeah.
it'll be an
Okay, so that's good. So even up to 4 months or less, which is a long time to be at level 25, which is interesting.
enough time for you to dig in. Make sure you can find all
That's
the
true.
rooms, make sure you
That's
can do
true.
the raid, get your best in slot from the raid if you want to get it. There's some discoveries that take you into the
That'll be really good for people like me who don't have time or can't. It'll keep people on the same page and give those casual players, people who can't play all the time to not get so far behind, which I think is a good thing.
raid and things like that. Make sure that you have the ability to do all that.
I'm more worried if it's a couple months, unless you add more to it. If it's just BFD, right? It's going to be BFD. There's the one raid in that one bracket. I think
There's-
Bracket right
Yeah,
now.
okay.
Go ahead.
There's something too, like if we too far in advance, if we decide hard dates on things and just say, okay, this is going to be out for this long,
Yeah.
we really run the risk of too short or too long, right? And so we're trying to be really flexible, especially with given our team size, we can pivot relatively.
Yeah, that's
quickly.
true.
And so that's why we're always like ear to the ground, trying to figure out like, okay, like what feels good.
Okay, last raid question. Are they all going to be 10-man during these brackets?
Okay, before they kind of switch gears, because that's another good question that he's asked there, and I'm excited to hear that. But I don't know. I really like the idea that it could be a level cap of 25 for quite a while, because I know probably a lot of you out there, if you're like me, started playing World of Warcraft back in 04, 05. Back then I was like a teenager, 20, something like that, and I had lots of time to play video games. And now, like in my 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, I don't have time. I can't play that much. So it's really good to hear that not everyone's going to fly ahead of me and I'll always be playing catch up. I really like that idea. Feeling like you can keep up. I find that very compelling because, like probably a lot of you now, you have responsibilities. So like for me, I'm a dad, but sounds like I'm going to be able to keep up, which is really nice to hear.
I'm not sure yet, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the cool things about kind of the power of creating content in WoW. Actually, we've got very robust tools that we've built up over decades, right? And
Okay, so again, this doesn't maybe seem like a big deal, but I really like that they don't know, and also that they just say, I don't know. Because first of all, they're not just saying, oh, they're telling us, they're actually answering our questions. And the fact that they don't know quite yet, I think is super, super important. And I think the fact that they don't know yet is really good, because what this makes me think is that why they might not know, or they're putting things up in the air and we don't really know, is maybe they finally learned to listen to the community and what the player base wants, and they're going to see how things go, and then they can make those adjustments as they are necessary. They can see what works and what doesn't work. They can see what's popular, and they can use that to inform decisions down the road at level 60, which everyone knows the level 60 content is going to be the most important. So I really like that. It almost seems like they're testing the waters at this lower level to see what works and what doesn't work. And then by the time they get up to 60, they'll have a good idea of what does work and, whether they're going to implement this or implement that. And even though it'll be slower, it's not all predetermined, and what was predetermined might not actually be good or work. And they'll have some data on what does work and what makes people happy and what's exciting. And so they can infuse that into what people are really excited, the level 60 new content. And I think it has a good chance of making it better. So I really like this approach they're taking.
And it's not terribly difficult to kind of turn the knob and say like, oh yeah, let's start working on this as a 10 player. It's like, you know what, this would feel better as 20. Let's just crank some numbers up.
So yeah, that's good. So like if they do decide to add something like increase the number of people in a dungeon, it's not hard. So I mean, not everything would fall into that. It's not hard category to make these changes, but it sounds like, you know, as they're moving forward slowly and adding things, it shouldn't be that hard to do some of these things. So I like this.
It works. So obviously some mechanical changes and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say. I think the thing we're a little concerned about too is that the nature of Season of Discovery too is that, you know, you may level to 25, find all the runes, level an altar too, and maybe you want to just kind of take a break for a week or two. Like we don't want to shackle you to the game. Approachability and respecting your time is a big goal here.
And that's huge. The approachability and respecting the time of the gamer is huge, because I know I have friends and like my sister and stuff. They will really like that. They'll like the chance to take breaks because they're busy and whatnot. And this just sounds like, I obviously hope that there is that really kind of top shelf, top level content for the top level players, but I like how it seems like it's going to be good for those people who remember vanilla WoW back in the day. It sounds like they're going to be able to really be a part of this by the way that these guys are approaching it.
Here. So we don't also want to get in a situation it's like, well, you need 40 people, and if 5 people decide they want to take a break, your raid is in trouble, right? So that was part of the reason for, like, during the level up process, smaller raid sizes kind of made sense for that.
Are the battlegrounds in at the first phase?
Yes.
Warsong goals.
That is
Are you
exciting.
gonna do like the same thing, or will it be like all level 25 one only, or like how's the brackets gonna work with it? Just the normal way?
Yeah, it'd be the normal way.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'm glad he asked that.
Yeah, PvP's
I'm
honor
excited that
system,
PvP honor system
people
will
won't
be
be
in
able
there.
to grind out rank 14 because we're still scaling based on your level, how much honor rewards you can actually earn, right? So,
Okay.
That's cool.
You won't be able to get past a certain point.
yeah.
There's really good, like, I think we mentioned this in the panel, that the Ashenvale PvP event gives Warsong Gulch rep for Horde and Alliance, right?
Yeah.
And there's some pretty spicy
that's
rewards
awesome.
there. I don't know if you noticed what the, like, on the VOD and stuff, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
But those mount models, those are the original unarmored mount models.
Yeah,
for
that's a
Night
brilliant
Elf.
idea.
That's super
That's a
cool.
brilliant idea.
And so you're going to get those from Warsong Gulch rep now.
So if you didn't know, the original mount models from ages ago, the epic mounts didn't have armor. I think this is what they're talking about. And then eventually they added armor to the epic mounts and just removed the other ones. You couldn't get them. They were out of the game. Like if you notice at the front of Stormwind, General Marcus, can't remember his name, Marcus Aurelius. I know that's the Roman guy, but his mount doesn't have armor. So sounds like they're kind of bringing that in there, which is pretty cool.
So very cool. And obviously they're only usable in Ashenvale, but they're very, very enticing rewards for that. So we're hoping PvP takes off really well.
I like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hope I didn't annoy you guys with my millions of questions.
Not at all, man.
Thank you guys.
So this was an excellent interview by Crix. I only talked about and reacted to the portion about Season of Discovery Classic Plus because that's the part that I'm most excited about. But in his interview, he covers a bunch more topics. I'll put the link in the description. So he talks about Wrath Classic, Cata Classic, Hardcore News, and SF, and then gets into Discovery, which is about a little under half of the whole interview. So, like I said, I will put that link down there. It's here by Crix. Excellent. It was a great interview, great questions. So I'll put that in there. And I'm really glad that he put this out there. Asmongold also reacted to this interview. He did the whole thing and he has some good takes. So I'll also put his link down if you're interested in the additional information that he kind of puts in there when he's watching this interview by Crix. Anyways, I'm Asdil. Thank you for watching. Take care.